Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The night was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that only comes before catastrophe. The rhythmic hum of hospital machines filled Noah Newman's dimly lit room, their soft beeping the only sign that life still coursed through his fragile body. But in the shadows beyond the sterile walls, danger lurked, cold, patient, and ready to strike. It wasn't over. Not even close. The assassin who had failed once before had returned to finish the job, moving through the corridors of Memorial Hospital like a phantom, undetected by security cameras and unseen by the exhausted nurses rushing between patients. The silence was his weapon, and his mission was clear: Noah had to die tonight. Earlier that evening, Nick and Sharon had been standing outside the ICU doors, their hands clasped together in quiet desperation. They thought the worst was over. After the car crash and the shocking discovery that it hadn't been an accident, after hours of surgery and waiting, after prayers whispered through tears, Noah had finally stabilized. The doctors had told them there was hope. Sharon had even allowed herself a moment of relief, resting her head on Nick's shoulder as he assured her that their son was a fighter. But fate, or something darker, wasn't done with the Newmans. Somewhere in the maze of corridors, a man in scrubs and a surgical mask moved with purpose. He had studied the hospital's layout for weeks, memorizing security patterns, guard rotations, and the timing of nurse shifts. He knew exactly when to strike, during that brief window between rounds when no one would question another person in hospital attire. He pushed a cart loaded with supplies, blending perfectly into the environment. On the surface, he looked like a nurse making a late-night check. But beneath the mask, his expression was grim, his eyes cold and unfeeling. Inside his pocket was a small syringe filled with a lethal neurotoxin, odorless, fast-acting, and undetectable in small doses. At that exact moment, Sharon was sitting in the family waiting room, scrolling through photos of Noah as a child. Every image brought back a memory: his first steps, his first heartbreak, his smile when he'd told her he wanted to make her proud. Nick stood nearby, talking to Dr. Reynolds, who was giving them updates about Noah's progress. "He's stable," the doctor said, his voice calm but cautious. "But the next 24 hours are critical. His system is weak, and we have to be careful with infection or any foreign substances." Sharon nodded through tears, unaware that foreign substances were already being prepared a few doors down the hall. Inside Noah's room, the assassin entered without a sound. He closed the door softly, glancing once toward the hallway to ensure no one saw. The monitors continued their quiet symphony of beeps as Noah lay motionless, his pale face illuminated by the glow of the machines keeping him alive. The intruder approached the bed, every movement precise and calculated. Pulling out the syringe, he flicked it once, ensuring no air bubbles remained. His eyes narrowed, locking on the 4-line feeding into Noah's arm. All he needed was a few seconds, just one injection, and it would look like a natural cardiac arrest. But the assassin didn't realize he wasn't entirely alone. In the corner of the room, a small motion sensor light flickered, an unnoticed piece of tech installed earlier that day at Nick's insistence after the previous attack. It silently recorded the figure's movements, capturing every detail. Still, that wouldn't save Noah if help didn't come fast enough. As the needle pierced the 4-tube, a faint hiss escaped. The poison began to flow toward Noah's bloodstream, invisible but deadly. The assassin took a step back, watching as the monitor lines began to tremble, signaling a sudden shift in Noah's vitals. His work was done. He turned toward the door, ready to vanish into the night once more. But fate, again, had other plans. Down the hall, Sharon suddenly froze. A deep unease washed over her, maternal instinct screaming that something was wrong. "Nick," she said, clutching his arm. "Something's not right. I can feel it." Nick tried to calm her, but then the hospital's emergency alarm blared, a shrill, gut-wrenching sound that shattered the quiet. "Code Blue, room 214, the intercom echoed. Sharon's heart stopped. "That's Noah's room," she cried, and before anyone could stop her, she was sprinting down the corridor, her shoes echoing off the tile floor. Inside, Noah's monitor was going wild. His heart rate plummeted, his oxygen levels dropping dangerously fast. Nurses rushed in, shouting for epinephrine, defibrillator pads, anything that could bring him back. Dr. Reynolds was called overhead, his voice calm but firm as he barked orders to the medical team. Sharon and Nick were pulled back by security, their eyes wide with horror as they watched through the small window in the door. "What's happening to him?" Sharon screamed, tears streaming down her face. "You said he was stable." Nick's fists clenched. His gaze darted toward the security camera feed just as one of the hospital guards rushed in, holding a tablet. "Sir," the guard said, breathless. "You need to see this." He turned the screen around, and there it was, grainy footage of a masked man entering Noah's room moments before the alarm. Nick's blood ran cold. "That's him," he growled. "That's the bastard who tried to kill my son." The footage didn't show the intruder's face, but Nick recognized the build, the posture. This wasn't random, it was targeted, and he knew it connected to the same shadowy web that had already destroyed too much of their peace. He stormed down the hall, yelling for security to lock the exits, but every second counted. The poison was already in Noah's veins. The only person who could save him now was Dr. Reynolds, and even that was uncertain. Inside the room, chaos reigned. Nurses shouted vitals, machines beeped frantically, and Dr. Reynolds moved quickly, his brow furrowed in concentration. "His pulse is thready." "We're losing him," one nurse said. "Start a talk screen." Reynolds barked. "Something's in his system, it's acting too fast." He grabbed a syringe, injecting a neutralizing compound in hopes of slowing the poison's effects. Sharon pressed her hands against the glass, sobbing, whispering prayers through trembling lips. "Please, God, don't take him. Not again. Not my boy." Nick's jaw tightened, anger and terror warring within him. He slammed his fist against the wall. "If he dies," he whispered darkly, "I'll find whoever did this and end them myself." Minutes stretched into eternity. Every beep, every shouted number was another stab to Sharon's heart. "He's seizing," one nurse shouted. Reynolds moved fast, adjusting the 4, administering another round of antidote. "Come on, Noah," he said under his breath. "Fight it. Don't you give up on me now." The poison was vicious, designed to paralyze the respiratory system before shutting down the heart completely. But Noah's body, though weak, was fighting. Reynolds noticed a flicker of stabilization on the monitor and doubled down. He ordered cooling measures to slow the spread through Noah's bloodstream, working with surgical precision. "We've got a response," a nurse shouted, her voice trembling with cautious hope. Outside, Sharon clutched Nick's arm. "He's fighting," she whispered. "He's still in there." But the battle wasn't over yet. The toxin was doing damage, and even if Noah survived the night, there was no guarantee he'd wake up. "We're not out of the woods," Reynolds warned grimly when he finally stepped out of the room an hour later, his scrubs soaked with sweat. "We managed to stabilize his heart, but the poison affected his nervous system. We'll need to monitor him closely. If he makes it through the next 6 hours, he has a chance." Sharon collapsed into Nick's arms, sobbing with relief and fear all at once. Nick held her tightly, his eyes fixed on the closed door. He couldn't shake the image of that masked figure. Whoever was behind this wasn't just some random killer, they were sending a message. "They want to finish what they started," he muttered. "But I won't let them." Meanwhile, Detective Burrow arrived, his expression grim as he surveyed the chaotic scene. "We've got hospital footage," he told Nick and Sharon. "We'll enhance it and run facial recognition. But from what I can tell, this guy knew exactly what he was doing. Professional. Precise. He came to kill and nearly succeeded." "Do you think it's connected to the car accident?" Nick demanded. Burrow nodded slowly. "It's too coincidental not to be. Whoever orchestrated that crash realized Noah survived, and they sent someone to clean up the loose ends." Sharon's voice trembled as she whispered, "Who would do something like this to our family?" Nick didn't answer. He already had names in mind, rivals, enemies, people with grudges against the Newman family. But one stood out, someone whose vendetta ran deep. "If this ties back to Mitch or Sienna," he said, his tone icy, "they'll regret ever being born." Hours passed like days. The hospital settled into uneasy quiet again, but no one could sleep. Sharon sat beside Noah's bed, holding his limp hand, whispering to him as the machines hummed softly. "You're strong, baby. You've always been strong. Come back to me. Please." Her voice cracked, raw with emotion. Nick stood by the window, glaring out at the darkness beyond. Every shadow seemed like a threat, every sound a warning. He was done waiting. Done being reactive. Whoever did this had crossed the line. Suddenly, Noah's monitor beeped, a steady, stronger rhythm than before. Sharon gasped, looking up in disbelief. "Nick," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "He's stabilizing. Look." The color was returning faintly to Noah's cheeks, his breathing evening out. Dr. Reynolds entered again, checking the readings, a cautious smile tugging at his lips. "He's responding better than expected," he said softly. "The antidote's working. He's not out of danger, but he's holding on." Relief washed over Sharon like a wave, but fear still lingered. The assassin had failed, but just barely. And that meant he'd try again. As the night stretched on, Nick made a silent vow, this wasn't going to happen again. He would find the person responsible and make sure they never came near his family. Outside the hospital, far from the bright lights and sterile halls, the assassin removed his mask and tossed it into a fire barrel in an alleyway. His phone buzzed, a single text message from an unknown number: "You failed. Finish it. Or don't bother coming back." He stared at the message, his jaw tightening. The game was far from over, and Noah Newman's life still hung by a thread. The clock was ticking, and the next strike could come at any moment. Would the doctor's quick thinking be enough to save Noah permanently, or was this only a brief reprieve before the storm returned to claim him for good? One thing was certain, the assassin wasn't done. And the next time he struck, he wouldn't miss. The faint morning light filtered through the blinds of Noah's hospital room, streaking across his pale face like fragile ribbons of gold. The night's terror had passed, but the tension still clung to every corner of the room. Sharon hadn't left his side once, her eyes were red from crying, her fingers tightly wrapped around his hand as if she could anchor him to life itself. Nick stood guard by the door, his expression hardened into that of a father who'd just stared death in the face, and wasn't about to let it win. The monitors beeped with a steady rhythm now, the rise and fall of the sound bringing them both a tiny sliver of peace. It had been hours since the poisoning, hours since Dr. Reynolds had managed the near impossible, keeping Noah alive long enough for the antidote to do its work. Sharon had prayed through every minute, whispering to Noah, begging him to fight, to come back to them. And now, as the sunlight touched his skin, something stirred. His eyelids fluttered. His breathing shifted. Sharon gasped, sitting up straighter. "Nick! Nick, look, he's moving!" Nick spun around, his heart pounding. "Noah," he called softly, leaning closer. For a moment, there was only silence, and then a faint sound, a weak, rasping groan that nearly brought Sharon to tears. Noah's fingers twitched in hers, and his lips parted. His voice was barely a whisper, dry and hoarse. "Mom. Dad." Sharon broke into a sob of relief, pressing her forehead against his hand. "Oh, thank God, you're awake." Nick's throat tightened as he reached out, resting his hand on his son's shoulder. "Take it easy, son. You've been through hell." Dr. Reynolds rushed in moments later, checking vitals and shining a small flashlight into Noah's eyes. "Welcome back, young man," he said with a smile of cautious optimism. "You gave us quite a scare." Noah blinked, trying to piece together what had happened. What's going on? Why does everything hurt?" His voice cracked, his confusion thick. Sharon wiped her tears and tried to steady her voice. "You were attacked, sweetheart. Someone tried to hurt you again. The words sank in slowly, and Noah's gaze sharpened, the memories flickering faintly behind his tired eyes. Attacked, he repeated, and then his expression shifted, fear, recognition, and something darker all blending together. He was here, last night. I saw him. Nick and Sharon exchanged startled glances. You saw who? Nick pressed urgently. Noah, do you remember what happened? Noah hesitated, his eyes darting toward the door as though afraid the man might still be out there. It was dark, he whispered. I couldn't move, but I felt someone near me. He wore scrubs, a mask. I thought it was a nurse. Then I felt the sting, here. He pointed weakly to his arm, where the 4 lines still fed fluids into his vein. His breath hitched as the memory flooded back. He looked at me before he did it. His eyes, cold, gray, like he didn't even care that I was alive. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Sharon covered her mouth, trembling. Oh my God. Nick's jaw clenched, anger burning behind his eyes. Did you see his face? Noah nodded slowly, pain etched across his features. Not all of it. The mask covered his mouth, but I saw the scar. He had a scar right above his right eyebrow. He paused, struggling to keep his voice steady. And he whispered something before I blacked out. He said, you shouldn't have survived the crash. The room fell deathly silent. Sharon gasped, realizing what that meant. This wasn't random. The same people who had orchestrated Noah's car accident had sent this assassin to finish what they started. Nick straightened, fury coursing through him like a storm. That's it, he said, his tone low and dangerous. This ends now. Detective Burrow entered moments later, clipboard in hand, his expression grim. I heard he's awake. That's good news. We were able to pull clearer footage from the security cameras. He set the tablet on the tray beside Noah's bed and pressed play. The image was grainy but sharper than before, the masked man moving swiftly through the hall, entering Noah's room. Then came the critical frame, a reflection caught briefly in the stainless steel cabinet door. The assassin's mask had slipped slightly, exposing part of his face. There, Nick pointed sharply. Zoom in. Burrow nodded. Already did. We ran facial recognition, and we've got a partial match. The name's Marcus Vance, former paramedic, dishonorably discharged, went off-grid 3 years ago. Last known ties are to Mitch Walters' security network. Sharon's eyes widened. Mitch, that's the man who's been threatening Nick's company. Yeah, Nick interrupted, his voice tight. And now he's coming after my family. Noah tried to sit up, wincing from the effort. Dad, he said something else, he murmured weakly. When he leaned over me, he said, tell your father this is his fault. Nick froze. Those words cut deep. His fault? What connection could he have to this hitman? He racked his brain, thinking back to the business deals, the rivals he'd crushed, the enemies he'd made. Mitch Walters had lost millions when Nick's company exposed his fraudulent dealings. That must have been it, revenge. But to go after Noah? That was a declaration of war. Sharon's fear quickly turned to fury. He's targeting our son to punish you? How far will he go? As far as he has to, Burrow said grimly. People like Walters don't stop until someone makes them. He looked at Nick. I'll put a protection detail on your family, but you need to understand, this man isn't working alone. There's funding, organization, and motivation behind this. Someone high up wants the Newmans broken. Nick nodded, but his eyes were on Noah. His son's life had nearly been taken twice now. The rage boiling inside him wasn't something he could put into words. He turned back to Burrow. Do whatever you have to, but find that man. I don't care how deep you have to dig. Meanwhile, Noah's condition remained fragile. The poison had left lingering effects, weakness, tremors, and partial paralysis in one arm. But the emotional scars were worse. He couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness, the memory of that voice whispering threats as darkness closed in. Sharon tried to comfort him, but her own fear made it hard to be strong.